Shalom, friends! Welcome to Orange Socks, a podcast celebrating Jewish creativity. I'm your host, Yitzchok Moully, inviting you to join me in exploring the soul of Jewish expression. Shalom, friends, and welcome to a very comfortable episode of Orange Socks Studios, Orange Socks Podcast. I'm here with Yehuda Lang up in Toronto, and we tried your studio.
Yes.
And it was a little too tight. It's a one-man studio. So we're here on your couch. We're a little more comfortable, but we're surrounded by your beautiful work. So
thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me.
I'm up in Toronto. I got family up here with the family. And now, I mean, it's always been my thing of wherever I go, try to find creators. But now I'm trying to find creatives and trying to find, people to have interesting conversations with on the podcast. So here we are.
Well.
So, very colorful.
Yeah.
Very colorful.
Yeah.
So colorful that we did a show together. We did, the two of us.
About 10 years ago.
And Anshi Kagan.
Yeah. I think it was Purim time, right before Purim. About 2014,
yeah, somehow our styles, they say that our styles are...
Yeah, you know what, it's funny. A number of times people mentioned that to me. Oh, like Moully, like I'll get the comparison. I think I see the similarities, but I see also the differences, but definitely the same explosion, so like celebratory a little bit,
right,
expression, soulful.
Yeah, yeah, no, there's definitely differences.
Yeah.
You got a lot more technical skill than I do. But like even this piece, I mean, the open book, I don't know how much of it we can see on the screen, but the open book and the floating letters, that's a continual, that's evolution of mine.
Yes, in terms of the letters being expressed and not being limited, kind of like it's the explosion of all the energy from the inside being released. I think the similarity in both are like you have the shofar where it's always like the sound or whatever it is. Like what is that energy?
Well, as we share Chassidus, we share Chabad. And that's in my book, that's it's Chassidus 101.
The language of the soul.
Is the language of the soul, but the impact of the mitzvahs that we do, the impact of our actions, the spiritual impact, and so to me, it's like that.
And what I feel, why people get it, why people like it, what sets them off, or what they get
what
about
talks to them.
It's the seeing what they feel. It's seeing the invisible.
Right.
So that's really the aha moment.
Right.
Which is you don't see that, but I felt it, and then that's where I think the appreciation for this kind of style, at least.
Right. Right. So it's not that we're depicting what is on a spiritual plane. We're putting visuals to people's feelings.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like it makes sense to them. It's like I was waiting for that in a way.
Right.
Like I get it.
They feel at home. They feel at home with it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because it runs the risk as well when you go for that, because sometimes you have to be. I mean, I'm saying for me, usually most of the time you run the risk of it becoming a mess.
Right.
Right, because that's kind of what you're doing. You're just making an organized mess.
Right.
And it's got to somehow look like it's organized, and it's meant to be that way. When you do this like expression and feeling and like energy, like it's a lot more comfortable to do. Like when I started my art, when I started, as a kid or teenager, even when I went to OCAD, I went to university.
So you studied?
I studied.
Okay.
Yeah, I studied art. I went to. I'll just mention this, a little bit of background about myself. So I went to, besides doing classes as a kid and spending all the time, anybody who's an artist was obviously doing it as a kid a lot. But then I went to art university. It actually became university when I was there. It's art college, university, whatever. But I remember up to that point, I was always like, art to me was largely, okay, you have to make the picture look like what you're drawing. That was it.
Right.
And the more accurate you can make it, the better of an artist you were.
Right. So that was your childhood understanding.
That was the original goal and like aim.
Right.
Mission was
right.
get as good And I remember very, very specifically, I was one time, and it was for one of my drawing classes, which was my favorite of all of the classes. But I had a task, I had one project, and I was doing it well. It was basically, I was drawing a picture of whatever it was. It was a man and it was a cowboy and his son. It was a beautiful picture, actually. And I remember I was spending a long, long time on this piece. I remember it hit me one time. I'm like, in the middle, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be. I feel like I was becoming a photocopier.
Right.
And I was trying to become the best photocopier I can be.
Right.
And especially the people around me were much better photocopiers. And I realized, okay, I can't. This is not.
You can't compete in that arena.
I can't. Not only can I not compete in that, there's always going to be people who are way better than me at photocopying. But nor is it something that I want to do. I didn't feel like, well, what am I offering?
Right.
What am I here for?
At some point, it loses soul.
It loses soul, unless, which is because if you study the people who are like the great hyper-realism people,
right.
There is a way that you go so deep into it.
You bring back the soul.
Yes, you're going like La Mila. You're going above. Like you went so into the mundane.
Right.
That you're looking. It's almost like when you watch videos about the hyperrealism, they're getting like every, like nuance. The time. Yeah, like every little dot in your face. They're getting like those pores. They're getting the pores, and then it's something. There's an energy there. But anyway, so that's why I realized I have to go and find something that's what do I offer? What am I bringing to the picture?
Right. Well, that's very much. That's the whole question. I mean, that's not just a question of hyperrealism or not hyperrealism, but it is. It's what am I bringing to the picture?
Otherwise, if I'm just doing what somebody else is doing, then what's the point? You know, sometimes I find that with music when I'm listening to a new song or a new band, I'm like, okay, it's good, but I've heard this before, and I can just listen to. You know, if you're, whoever it is,
the greats. Just go back to the greats.
Listen to that, and so I need to know what do you offer? What are you bringing? And so my point, why I originally brought that up was this idea about when you go that way of drawing something it's all contained and there's no expression, less expression, it's safer. Right. I'm comfortable. If I'm drawing a picture of a horse, just straight up.
Also, if you're drawing from reference. Then you're not making anything up. Yes, it's whatever is whatever.
You know when the picture's finished, which is also a very big challenge.
Yes.
You know when it's you know when you're off.
Right.
You know, here I'm just constantly judging, so it's like it's hard to say. But yeah, so that's the risk by going this way, and it's more comfortable to go.
So that ties into, and my idea, I didn't go to school. I didn't study art. I'm making it up as I go along, and thank God, so far so good.
It's working out.
It's working out. But one awareness is that all forms of expression meet three basic criteria, and potentially a fourth. Is number one is what you say.
Okay.
Your subject matter. How you say it. Yes. Your form. And then my third is what you do with it, how you share with it, how you share. Once it's done, now what?
Oh, okay, that's an interesting point. Okay.
And then someone else pointed out, and I forget who, and I wish I remember, said why. And probably why is the deepest.
Yeah, why?
And why is the das. And hyperrealism doesn't need a why, or it's just that's the answer, because to create as true to, but like why. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just to be the best hyperrealism, but as a chassid, why comes? Does why come first? Does why come at the end?
Well, why? That's a very good thing. Why ultimately? Why, or is it ultimately just? It's funny. I rarely would ask why, but it's now that you mention it. Now that you mention it, I do see it as. Because otherwise it's random. Why, for instance, why am I going to pick a certain subject? Why am I picking this piece? Why am I making it this way?
Right.
Why do I need to do this?
Right.
Why do I need people to see it? There's so much to do. So much.
Right. And when you're deep in the studio, you just you're in your zone. You're going. You're not thinking why. The why is.
That's actually the trick. The less you can think, the better. The less you get in your head, the more you just. Let it flow without thinking.
Sure. Overthinking is not so healthy. But what is your why? You know,
Yeah.
if you know, every so often you do have to take a
Yeah.
step back. Every so often you do have to analyze
Yeah.
whether it's a specific piece or your whole creative
Purpose,
pursuit.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Like, what am I doing?
purpose. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Especially when you're doing something like what we do, it's unique. I feel like even though the community is growing, like of artists, I'm not talking about like visual artists, but like the whole Jewish art in terms of music is exploding
Right.
from what it was when I was growing up.
Right.
You know?
No, well, music's way ahead of us. Music is
yeah.
like 10, 15 years
Yes.
ahead of visual arts in the
terms
Jewish
of-
in the Jewish
of it
music
being
scene.
opened
Absolutely.
up. When we were growing up, was Avram Fried, you
Right.
know, like
Right.
Mordechai and David, and like I don't know.
And the
couple of-
Piamentas.
Yeah, yeah, but it wasn't. Now it's like there's so. The art is because there's more people are you're seeing more on Instagram, Facebook. So there's more
Right.
exposure. So therefore, there's more artists who are coming out, and the styles are leaving the shtetl styles as well.
Yes.
You know, the traditional styles that we had. Sorry, where was it going with this? You're asking me about the
Why?
Yeah.
Your why.
Yeah, so I was saying about the idea, why it's important to know, because especially we're on this journey, which is a unique journey, and it's like a little bit of a risky journey. Like if I would have been an accountant or something where you don't have to ask why. What do you mean why? You counted any money and I got to pay
Right,
the bills.
right.
So then you wonder, well, why this one? I'll tell you why it's a hard question to answer, because when you did it, when you went out, I'm assuming you're this, Alex, maybe I'll talk for myself, but you just went. And it was just a natural thing. Like you don't ask, like my kids, for instance, they come home and they color. There's no why. They just do that. That's what they
Right.
do. And so that's what I always just did.
Right.
And then it just never stopped. And then I became older and I was still just doing it. So it's like, it wasn't like there was a why to make it happen. But now that I'm in it,
Right.
I have to figure out, well, okay, I'm actually really going into this. I'm putting
Right.
myself in it fully. So why what's the why? And that's a
Right.
very good question. I think we had I think it might have been with you. I spoke with you about it, about the idea of, because I do a lot of art and I do some non-Jewish art, like just like,
Right.
you know, music, you know, Bob Marley and Paul McCartney and stuff like that. And and as I was going to like realizing, okay, I'm going to become a professional artist, I was debating, you know, there's so many more non-Jews, I can sell to so many. And I'm not sure if it was with you, and you're talking about how just Jewish, like you're here to do Jewish art. Was that with you?
Could be. It could be.
I don't know.
I don't think I told you. You
No,
must. You
no.
should. No.
We were having a conversation.
I
and
questioned.
I think you might have
like,
mentioned something
where's
about.
the? Yeah. Again, it comes to why. It comes to why. You know, why are you doing this? You
Yeah.
know, and
So over the years, the answer has come to me before I even ask the question. Like I feel like I have something here to offer. God gave me something to offer. Like
Right.
everybody has something to offer. And if you have something to offer, then you're obligated, right? It's an obligation. God didn't give it to me for nothing.
Right.
Just like anybody has some
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
skill.
yeah.
You're here to, that's the basic. And then you see like, you know, you think about it. Like for instance, I keep specific pieces by my dining room table, as you saw. And I realized at my dining room table, because I'm always switching around the pieces, when I change a piece, the energy changes.
Yeah.
Of the dining room table, which means all my Shabbos meals, all my
Right.
family time. So when I have a holy picture of a rabbi, whatever it is, I have a kotel, but you feel an energy.
Right.
It changes the energy in the room.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
I feel it. And so I think, oh, I could, between so many homes providing this.
Yeah.
It's not a Dvar Torah, but it's an energy. And hopefully, a good piece of art
Yeah.
should have an energy that is expressed from it, that just doesn't just stay in the piece of art, but it should change the room.
Yeah.
I believe a right piece of art can change the room. So that's what I feel.
That's part of your why.
That's part of my why.
Yeah.
I feel I can do it, but it came afterwards. To be honest, it wasn't like I had a why and then okay, now I'm going to be an artist, so I can do that. It was just like,
Right.
okay, I realize what's happening
Right.
here. It's not for nothing. There's some sort of point.
Right, and from looking at it from a very different perspective, you know, they talk about business. Business is filling a need. You know, that you find a need out there and find a way to fill that need, and then you have a business.
Yeah.
So what is art doing? Is art filling the need of, oh, you have empty walls, come let me fill it. Like that's
Yeah.
to me, that's the most base really that's all we do is we fill
Yeah,
walls.
yeah.
But you're saying from a different way is that we're filling it with we. It's not the need isn't empty walls. The need is bringing Jewish energy and
Yeah.
spiritual energy into the room,
Yeah.
and this is doing it. And in the Rebbe's 10 mitzvahim, the one mitzvah that isn't a mitzvah as far as I'm aware, not one of the 613, but it's one of the mitzvahim is Bayis Malas Svarim,
Yeah.
the house full of books, which really, again, I should do more research on this, but it's about creating a Jewish environment,
Yeah.
a Jewish space. And as you just said, you know, these works create a Jewish space, create that energy.
Yeah. The images that you see on the day to day, what you come home to, whether you're looking at it or not, it's affecting your
No,
mindset.
I forget that people who bought my art have a huge piece of my piece on their wall. Yeah. I forgot about them, but I realized they're not forgetting about me.
Yeah,
you know,
it became their dining room
right,
wall. Yeah.
right, exactly. You're on their wall.
Yeah, you become an important part of their. I don't know if this is pushing it too far, but you become a part of their home.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So it's a responsibility.
It's a responsibility. Yeah, my line is it's an opportunity and a responsibility.
Yeah.
Those two together.
Yeah, both. You're right. It's a responsibility. That's an opportunity. That's true. But another thing is that because we try to put this into words, like we try to explain it, which is a rare thing because you don't. As I'm doing art, like you don't really think. You're just okay. This is a good picture. I'm going to make this. You're not really thinking of all the reasons. But I think one aspect of it, which is probably the most truest aspect of the why, is art or music. I put the two together, but like. It's beyond words to explain why I need to listen to this song right now. Why when I had a certain moment outside and I get in the car, I need to listen to this specific artist. That happens to me. Like I need this right now. Why? I don't know what it's doing for me. I can't explain it.
Right.
But it's taking me somewhere.
But it's doing something.
It's doing something.
Right.
And the same thing happens with art. I believe it's not it's like the next plane where it's hard to put into words and explain. Well, why? When I put certain colors next to each other, I know certain colors together in a certain spot in a certain way. Yeah. It gives me a release. It gives me like a little bit of tension and tension and release.
I think visual art is a little bit more removed, but comparing music to art, music to visual art, and in Hasidic thought, this idea of mamale and sovev, the God's energy. There's again, if I can say this right, there's mamala energy, which is God filling each. This is a cup, and there's a godly energy that's filling this cup that allows this cup to be different than my arm in the couch, and the energy of sovev, which is just the energy, God's emanating energy that's equal everywhere, and visual art is more of an encompassing energy. It doesn't. Music touches you more. It impacts you. You feel that impact, and so it's more short term. Both the impact is faster, and maybe the
impacts of it with music.
With music is faster, and maybe the release. Maybe once the music stops, it does resonate. It continues, but visual arts, it's more subtle. It's more subtle. And not that many people stand in front of a painting and have a change in them, but it's as you're saying, it changes the energy.
It changes the energy,
and it's a lot more subtle and a lot more. I don't know if it's slow. It's not a matter of fast or slow. It's more vague. You can't put your finger.
You can't put your finger on it. Music, I can give you a whole bunch of explanations as to why this one it's slow music. The beat is slow. The lyrics. Right. There's certain things I can put more explanation sometimes, but I think with art, even though there is subject matter, and you look at the expression on the face, and you can explain certain things, how it makes you feel. But I think the relationship that we have with color is a certain relationship that we don't talk much, we don't learn much about it. Right. But how different colors in certain ways affect you. Right. Without realizing
and there's a psychology to it, without realizing.
Right. And that's why people will look at a painting of 3 splashes of color, right? Like a weird type of painting, and you're going to see it's sold for $100,000 or more.
Right,
There's ones that
right.
sell for ridiculous amount, and everybody's like, oh, I can do that. Well, you just literally painted
Right.
blue, and then you did another thing like that. And when you start learning about art, you see how they're experimenting with this relationship that we have just with color. That's like a new type of a relationship that's not really understood very
Right,
well. Like
right.
why certain colors and combinations of colors and certain patterns trigger certain
Well,
emotional
Rothko, I
reactions.
mean, Mark Rothko, and again, I forget what his quote is, but it's about the intersection. All of Mark Rothko, not all of, but Mark Rothko's classic work are these abstracts, and they're just color fields. But it's all it's all about that intersection between the two colors.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it is. It's color and it's color theory, and how it impacts us even without us realizing it. And two things. I was in Israel recently, in Yerushalayim, in the Shuk. And the Shuk, of course, Machne Yehuda Shuk during the day is bustling. And for years, it used to be at night. It shut down. It was over. What changed? Now, the Shuk is a nightlife spot.
Oh, okay. I haven't been in a while.
What happened is that Solomon Swiesel and a few others, and I forget exactly who, so I apologize. Let me just make sure. Is this catching us? Yeah, fine. Solomon Swiesel and others started painting portraits of people in the Shuk. And little by little, those portraits changed the whole Shuk.
Yeah.
And then you look at Wynwood down in Miami. That was premeditated. I'll get it. You give it, Wynwood was premeditated. A few big developers came in, but they brought the art. And the art is what transformed the community. But it's in Wynwood. Is it? Oh, is this painting? This is what changed the neighborhood. No, in the Shuk, is it? Oh, it was all of the paintings together created an environment that people wanted to spend time in, and nobody, people who spent the whole night, they didn't. It's not any one painting that necessarily impacted them. It could be, but it's just, again, the environment, the energy, the surroundings.
Surround yourself with pretty things, with things that make
We're deeper than pretty things.
Yeah, we're deeper than pretty things, but ultimately, I know that was like a small line that I just threw out, but ultimately, and here's my rule, where I think some artists lose it. Maybe other artists don't have to keep my rules, but I think at the end of the day, it always has to be pretty.
Right.
And I think a lot of artists lose it on that. Some people think more about creative expression, energy, whatever you want to call it. And maybe there was points where I was experimenting and was okay with doing something else. But now, like, it has to always. The bottom line is it has to be pretty.
Right.
And it's got to be something aesthetically pleasing.
I'll disagree. I've made some pieces that are really memorials of very negative things that are not pretty. So
you're saying they're just meaningful pieces.
They're meaningful pieces. I mean, I did a piece on Har Nof, years ago now. It was a massacre in a shul on a Tuesday morning, and a group of rabbis were davening, and I recreated the scene.
Yes, I do.
I took a talus and I ripped it, and it's red. And it's not pretty.
No,
it's not pretty. But it did its job, and
That's true.
the people who see that one, I get more of a visceral reaction to that.
Yeah, that is true.
So I don't disagree with you while disagreeing with you. I understand where you're coming from.
For me, you're right. I hear what you're saying. I actually one time did, a long time ago when I was maybe 20, I did a picture of a Holocaust, the famous one with that boy. It's a classic one. Everybody knows this picture. I can't describe it more, but it's one of those classic ones I did with charcoal. And everybody who would see it, was one of those stopped you in your tracks.
Right.
Which is also, you're right. That is also.
Where I will agree with you is that some people will make things not pretty for the sake of making it not pretty. And I'm with you on that.
That's right.
I'm with you on that.
That's more
that
accurate.
Just to
be for the sake of making it chaotic. Then
for the sake of making it not pretty. Pretty
that
doesn't.
Means it's smart. That means it's genius. Not exactly. Yeah.
It needs to. Again, even abstracts need to be accessible.
There's got to be a rhyme and a reason, and there's got to be something.
There's got to be a way in. You're got to be able to have a relationship, even if it's the title. Sometimes the title really brings the piece together, and you get a window in. Again, I have a problem with Untitled 57.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, in the MoMA, and like,
Yeah.
give me something to work with.
Yeah, I struggle sometimes with titles for making the titles. And I have to do it. I would avoid it at all costs, except when I have to put it on my website or like post it or something like that. And I always like, once I start thinking about it, it's gone. But every once in a while, I think will just pop in my head. Like I have one of a saxophone player.
Right.
And I'm just like, I think I changed the name a couple of times, but it was just like, first thought was in a meeting.
Right.
I said to somebody, I'm in a meeting, and I'm like, that'll be a perfect name for the saxophone. It has to come just automatically. But once I'm starting to think, well, here's my art of the koto, so what should it be? And that's why I haven't come up with a good title for the koto one. It's just like the like Prayers of the Western Wall. Like it's okay. I mean, it describes it, but it's not like what you're saying in terms of like.
So I would title this Together.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Orange Socks, the Orange Socks podcast. When I created it,
that one's a good one. The title really is
like
definitely
the
equal
title
part of
is
that.
that's. But I was like, uniqueness, individuality. Like I don't know. I was like,
don't give it to them.
I was trying so hard. I was trying so hard. You know, needle in the haystack. I it was years ago, and I was like really trying hard. And a friend helped me. I was like, just Orange Socks. That's it.
Yeah.
What you do with it, up to you.
Yeah.
You know.
That's very good. By the way, good point that you just mentioned. Very, very often, first of all, most of my pieces that I think are my better pieces, or the ones that did well for me, were things that people suggested to me, whether it's been titles or actual pieces. For instance, this one.
Right.
A number of them that have done quite well was ones that I didn't even want to do, but friends said, "Oh, I have this idea." And a lot of times artists are going to be like, oh,
yeah,
you're not an artist, don't tell me. You know, or they feel like nervous to ask. But like, I'm always, because I've learned so many times that by listening to somebody else, you're going to, so now when somebody comes up with an idea, I'm usually quite attentive because very often.
My response is, that's a great idea. Go for it.
Oh, okay. No, I like to steal it. I'm like, okay, I'll
go
take
for
that.
it. Okay.
Not steal it, but once I do it, if it's a good idea, because you're stuck in your own head and you can't see past your own self.
Right.
And sometimes to see a fresh way of.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I had one particular, which when somebody called me, it was a friend, somebody I'm not so close with, but someone who I see here and there, and he was getting married, and he had asked me. I mean, it was a little later, and he was asking me for ketubah, and I was busy. I didn't have time. I didn't really want to do commissions at that point. Now I do more commissions, but I was like, I just didn't want to. But he kept on calling me. I thought like, I'm really bad at saying no, which is another problem. And then I'm like, finally, just because I couldn't say no, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then he's like, oh, my fiance wants it to be hearts. Right. And I didn't want to do hearts. I'm like, I just don't want to do hearts.
Right.
But he's like, oh, what do you mean my fiance?
Right.
Okay, I'll do hearts. And it turned out to be that piece, if it's not my biggest seller, it's up there with the biggest seller. Right. And it's just the idea I just want the point that you said about your friend calling you, and I find that people hold up, nobody can tell me what, my piece they're going to tell me, but very often when we listen to other people.
Oh, I call friends all the time, and I have someone I work with that, I banter ideas. I mean, I call Anshe Kagan often.
He's very creative, he's very, very clever.
No, I talk to people. No, when someone shows up off the street and just says, "I got an idea for you," usually I have a laundry list of ideas. I have more ideas. I have more menorah designs, three-dimensional designs that I can keep up with. So again, it goes back to the why. Someone else gives you their idea. If there's no why, if it touches me. Then absolutely. I've done some of those, but if it's just some random creative idea and they don't have a means of
putting it together,
they just give it to you. Like, here, you take it.
You do it.
You deal with it. It's like no, it's yours. You go for it. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It's got to align with your why, which is true. That's the way to be, ideally, to be always aligned with your why in life.
So going back to my paradigm. What you say, how you say it, how you share it with the world, and why. We touched on why. So how you say it is, I see a lot of the work is digital,
Yeah. It's all,
two-dimensional digital.
it's all hand drawn.
Go back to, well, yeah, that and how your evolution from
Yeah.
art school.
So it all started off organic. Like that's how everybody. I mean, at least when I was growing up, there was nothing else. Pencil, paper, paints, and then sure enough, I got into. I was doing that for probably till I left art school. I was never in art school. I didn't do anything with. I didn't know about Wacom.
Did it exist and you just stayed away from it,
I
or
just
it didn't even
started. I
exist?
just started with Adobe in art school. They forced you to. You had to
What
buy
year?
a computer.
What year was that?
I'm gonna say 2001, 2002 maybe. I went. By the way, I did. It's funny. So I went to OCAD because I had art skills. But once I got in there, so the first year you do everything, and then I realized I can't be an artist. I never thought I could be an artist. I thought that was a ridiculous thing. Like nobody's an artist for a job. Like that's not a thing.
Right.
But so I didn't go down that stream. You could pick the art stream or you can pick design stream. And I figured, well, the only way is like I got to make
The only way you can make money is designing things for other
like,
people.
I can't be an artist. I didn't really think that was realistic. So I went to advertising. So I started advertising there. So the longer I was there, it becomes more and more focused. So you're just doing that. You're not doing drawing classes, and a little bit you can do, but anyway. So that's just the point I did. And then it ends up being while I was in school there, because I did it kind of part time. I was working as an illustrator. See, Hashem has an interesting way of showing you. You don't think you can do it by art to make a career. So even as I was there, I got a job. Working for a company called Color Keys. It was a Jewish company where they make these piano books, but they wanted them illustrated. Anyways, and there was a lot of pressure. Some of the teachers were saying to me, "Why don't you continue with art? Like you're not." Also, my design skills weren't great. Like I knew it. I knew I got. Like I didn't chop it. I didn't understand it. Eventually, I think it clicked. I'm not the greatest designer, but I can, pull it together. Anyway, so only once I started working, like after school, and started to get commissions and this and that, I dabbled in, so I do digital. A lot of it's digital. It's all hand drawn, just to be clear. I don't want people to think that I'm like typing things up and coding, especially now. It's so easy.
AI is, well, that's the next conversation, is how that impacts your work. But
yeah, that's a whole podcast, that conversation.
Yeah, we'll leave that for later.
But so now I do both. Most of the things here, like this Koto one, is it's all hand drawn. Sometimes I'll start with pencil first. I have a little more comfortable relationship with the pencil on a paper to get the ideas out. But and as well, I do a lot of acrylic, watercolor. I dabbled a little bit with oil, but mostly. And now I'll choose. I'm trying to get back into acrylic, where I really started with. There's advantages to both. There's a lot of advantages to both, and they both have different whys, I guess.
Right. Do you borrow elements from one painting to another?
Yeah.
You say they're all hand drawn.
They're all hand drawn.
But you don't.
You can copy and paste. That's the thing.
So you do copy and paste. You do copy
and
paste
copy
from.
and paste. For instance, a lot of my pieces have letters.
Right.
These lines.
These vertical lines I've seen elsewhere.
Yeah. I've seen that on a lot of the things.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of the things I borrow. That is true. Especially the letters, the Hebrew letters. Again, energy.
Is this a font of yours?
No.
You created a font?
Those are hand drawn.
These are all hand drawn.
Each one is hand drawn. But I can copy and paste and layers and stuff like that, which gives you a lot of opportunity.
How organized are you?
Sorry?
How organized are your files?
Oh man, not better.
If you're looking for that chaf,
no.
could you find it?
Yeah, I could. I could be more organized. That's definitely.
You'd have to go into the file of this painting, or you have.
So I've gotten smart. I've gotten smart.
Okay.
A file with letters.
Letters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I used to do these ones. I don't do them so much anymore because they take a lot of time and it was hard to make it worthwhile. But I used to do names. I'm not sure if you've seen that. I have like all the Hebrew letters and the person's name. I sometimes do it. Not as much anymore as I used to. But originally it was like my bread and butter. It was like I get a lot. But also back to that, the letters are energy. So we were talking about energy before. So a lot of the pieces have energy. So I will borrow and I'll move things around, which is, in this way with digital, you can find things that you didn't see before, which is usually the best things that happen in a piece. You didn't purposely make them to be that way, but you moved something in a certain way. I'm sure you probably
And
experienced
then
that, right?
layers. I mean, the opacity and just
Yeah,
you know,
opacity and
throwing layers.
Yeah, and scaling and
Right.
there's a lot of opportunity. However, there's a challenge that organic when I paint when I paint with paints, I feel closer to the painting. I feel I have a little more control or something like that.
Right.
I feel it's weird.
Well, no, there's no back button. You know,
There's
I mean,
no
you can
back
you always
button,
cover.
but you can always
You can always cover, but
Yeah.
but there's something more final, more
About
real
putting actual
about putting paint on
an actual canvas.
on a spot.
And there was something that was transferred. Is something there that makes it.
No, we talked before about going too far.
Yeah.
You know, making sure that you don't go too
Not
far.
knowing
How do you
where
know
to
not
end.
when
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
You know, with digital, yeah, you can go too far and you can just backtrack.
Yeah.
You know, and therefore
Which I'll
that
do.
that weight is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Which means without the pressure, perhaps you don't get it to that sweet spot potentially of
Be
that
more
ending,
cautious. You gotta
know.
be more cautious. Yeah. But even with an acrylic painting, I'll struggle as to know.
Oh, when you're
where-
done? Yeah, no, of course.
Usually, sometimes, when I don't feel like painting this anymore. I'm
Right.
done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Well, you're
When I
done.
lose interest, yeah.
Right.
When I lose interest, it's the problem sometimes with commissions. I lose like
You lose interest before
lose
you start.
interest. Yeah. Or when you're looking at a piece for a week.
Right.
I'm like literally looking at a
enough
piece
already.
for a week or 2 weeks or more.
Right.
And eventually I'm like, I can't even judge it anymore.
Right.
I
But do you
can't
just
look
work
at
on
it.
one piece until it's done, or you're dealing with a
Depends on
deadline?
Deadlines, yeah.
Right.
Deadlines. Which are your best friend and your enemy at the same time.
Of course.
Because
of course.
without deadlines, you're finished. Like,
Right.
you need deadlines also. You just need deadlines, but of course it's fun to not have a deadline.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Everything is good better with limitations. Everything is better with limitations, with deadlines, with constrictions. You always get annoyed when a client tells you, but I want to have,
Right.
what do you mean? I want to have hearts. What do you mean? Let me just do what I want to do. Whenever you have
No,
limitations, that's where
100%.
creativity thrives.
Yeah.
People think, no, I need it free.
No. It's. I was talking to David Moss. You familiar with David Moss? One of the people that I met in Eretz Yisrael that I want to go back and record a podcast with him. The guy's brilliant, really brilliant.
Yeah.
He's older, a generation older than us,
Okay.
and
He's a painter?
he's a creative. He's an artist.
Okay.
He does primarily. He works with like paper letters, like manuscripts. He did a Haggadah, an incredible Haggadah. Spent 7 years on a Haggadah.
Okay.
The ketubah that you did, ketubahs used to, centuries ago, ketubahs were all beautiful, and then it stopped. He's the one that brought it back. Until then, it was just purely a
Does he
document.
do letters, like Hebrew letters in the
He
background?
does Hebrew
like
letters. He
that?
does so many
I
things.
think I might know who he is.
Why did that come up? What are we talking about? Constraints.
Yeah,
Right, so we're talking
constraints,
about constraints.
limitations.
You know, like he showed me his book on ketubah. You should get it. You really should
Yeah.
get that book on his book on ketubot, ksubas. And what struck me is, I mean, this is the book. This spans 50 years of work. This particular book, and a ksuba. What's a ksuba? It's a legal document, and it's letters on a paper. How creative can you get with a legal document? You know, it's not. It has to be a legal document.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
halachically a legal document, and it has to be these words, and it has to be on ink on paper, and yet, just the direction that his mind can go in creating. I can't even describe some of this. You got to get the book. I highly recommend you get
David
the book.
Moss. Okay.
David Moss. And that, from within this constraint, he
You
went.
reached greater beauty than you would have known. Which is interesting, by the way, if I can add. The Rebbe took a tremendous, like everybody would say in all industries, they would say this, I'm sure, about their industry, but the Rebbe took a tremendous interest in art.
Yeah.
And there's many accounts of the Rebbe's take on art. But the thing that I want to, and there's a lot to talk about just that, it's very interesting. But the reason why I bring that up, the Rebbe, which is surprising, I guess I was very surprised, but not surprised, because the Rebbe had his take on everything, how it should be done. But he had a lot of rules about how he thought art should be. and its purpose. He had a very big explanation as to the why of art.
Right.
And ultimately, I heard an explanation. I'm getting off
Please
topic, so
share.
everything.
No, go
So I heard
ahead.
from Rabbi Mendel Kaplan. I share this a lot because it's really interesting. Why did the Rebbe have such a keen interest in art? And it was very important to him because he paid for Baruch Nachshon, you know the story, or he helped him through.
Personal, from his personal funds. Yeah.
So why did he have such an interest in art? Maybe you heard this or not, but that art originally was for Kedusha. It was purely for Kedusha. It was in the base of, base of Migdash and the Mishkan. Everything was artistic with artists and done in such a beautiful way. And it was ultimately the why was to serve God and to make that expression. And then it was taken over by the other side and went to the other, idol worshipping or whatever, wherever it went. And the Rebbe says, for Mashiach to come, art has to come back to the side of Kedusha. But anyways, the point.
So I heard the second half without the first half. It's to take. I heard that the Rebbe, Baruch Nachshon's job was to take art from Klippa, but it's take it back from Klippa. That it started with Kedusha and take it back from Klippa.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's why I think now is the revolution of art.
We got
Mashiach to come. We have to take it back.
We got work to do.
We got a job. We have a why. We have a why. That's the why.
That's it. No, people ask, fundamentally, what are you doing? I'm trying to bring Mashiach, and either people get it or they roll their eyes, it's a lofty goal, but this is, in my little way, what I can do.
But it's also so natural. It's a natural thing that even people might not get it. People somewhat get it. Even the people who might roll their eyes, I think they do get it. But what I want to mention before I forget, the Rebbe was very, in a way, strict about art shouldn't be. He didn't like it too stylized, and there were certain things. It was something that had to be for a mitzvah. It had to be accurate.
Right.
I wonder sometimes if the Rebbe would like my art because my art's not necessarily accurate. Sometimes I don't know if it would fit in that. So it's a little bit extreme. I don't know. But my point is like this. You wonder, well, the Rebbe puts all these restrictions on us. How am I going to be creative?
Right.
But it works the opposite. The more restrictions you have is where creativity thrives. And I think that, look at Chabad in general, is very restrictive in a lot of ways. Yet the energy and the creativity in all sorts of angles is like we've never seen through these limitations.
So I'm going to get a quote. I saved it. David Margolin, I got to have him on, has written a number of articles on the Rebbe and the Rebbe's interaction with art and so on. So the big menorah the biggest menorah in the world on Manhattan, Yaakov Agam's menorah. Okay. So he wrote an article about the Rebbe's relationship to it, but really along those lines. So this is a pull quote from the article. The Rebbe responded that the primary emphasis of a menorah, according to the Rambam, is its diagonal branches. Within those parameters, however, an artist such as Yaakov Agam must be given the space to express himself. So,
okay, very good. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So having you got to Rambam is straight. You got to have straight arms. But
same thing with the luchos.
Right. Well, luchos must be square, right? Because historically accurate, which other people got lost in, and so on.
But you see in shuls or whatever, and also for the Nora. And then the Rebbe had many rules about, well, I guess as publications, but like there should be boys and girls equal.
Equal but separate.
Very, very specific.
No, but also the Rebbe gave Machalmachnik a lot of pointers. One thing for sure is 3 candles. When painting, we're painting candles, Shabbos candles. You have the 2, and then you have the one in the middle. But then there's the right, left, chesed. The things that are like tzedakah belongs on the right hand side because it's chesed. Davening belongs on the left hand side because it's gvura. Again, when you can, like when you're having all these elements, put the elements in their appropriate place. That elements have there's a natural order
of how things go,
of how spiritually, where things belong.
And it just goes back to, I guess, reinforce what we said earlier, is that there's an energy in the piece,
right?
And it's undeniable. And if the structure is off, then the energy is affected. Just like everything we do in a mitzvah, and everything we do. What does it matter if I wait this many hours between the meet, or if I do? No, the structure creates the energy.
The structure creates the energy. Yeah, and I'm coming along, the idea of details. You know, it's all about the passion. It's all in the soul and the wrist, and You know, again,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
me
not
too,
taught.
me too,
I'm
me
not
too, me too.
taught. I haven't learned. I haven't studied a rigorous. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the right details in the right place,
Yeah.
so that that
Yeah,
soul,
yeah.
that you know, and to me, it's about that final goal of, you know, the viewer
Yeah.
has to be, you have to take that
Yes.
breath away.
Yeah,
You got to be
yeah,
able to, like,
that's
that
right, yeah.
wow, that spiritual wow.
Yeah.
But that only comes about
Yeah.
through all the right
Through all
pieces
the right
being in
instructions.
to create
Yeah.
the energy.
Which is why very often, if I'm going to make a piece of where I'm trying to make a person's face and it's supposed to be recognizable, I want to, you know, I want to get the true likeness of the person, but I want to have it with that kind of, you know, explosion of
right.
energy. First, I got to get the face down.
Right.
I got to get the drawing down first straight, like
Right.
want to call it boring, whatever, call it
Right.
plain, just accurate. I do that
Accurate,
first.
accurate.
I don't start with and then you wait to see, okay, well, where's the point? Where's the point of tension and release? I think all art,
Right.
well, one of the main things of art is tension and release.
Right.
Where's the explosion? Where's it breaking through? Where's, you know, like, where's the energy coming out of the shofar? Whatever it is, like, where's it
Right.
going? Where's the direction? It's all about,
Where's the room for the release?
yeah, where's it going to be calm?
Right.
Because if everything is crazy, although some of my pieces, the whole thing is crazy, like this one.
Right.
The whole thing is crazy.
I'm loving that.
Yeah, some people like this one, but this one is mostly crazy, and that one also. But sometimes it's about, you have to find, it could be a small point,
Right.
but it's, I think first you gotta, at least that's my take, first I gotta know the structure very, very well before you can start to mess around. Like, you can't just start playing jazz.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta know, you gotta be
Right.
very disciplined to play jazz.
Yeah.
Know the
Right.
rules,
Right.
the
You got to be
timing,
really
gotta
disciplined
know.
to play jazz.
Yeah, it seems like
Exactly.
it's all crazy. What do you mean? It just sounds a crazy sound. No,
Right.
there's a very complex
Right. There's a
structure.
yeah. I also just abstract painting, just straight up abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you do-
It's not even, it's not about rules, but it
Yeah.
is rules. It's
Yeah, I wonder if you take something like Jackson Pollock. There's no, is there a structure? Oh,
There is,
kind
there
of.
is, there
kind
is.
of,
There
yeah.
definitely
If
is.
you look at it for a long time,
Yeah.
even a little bit, you don't have to look so long. You see the patterns, you see the
patterns,
you
but
see the rhythm,
the
and
rhythmic,
flow,
right?
yeah.
There's rhythmic movement,
Yeah.
and it's all built on the same, like, you know, it wasn't like his tools were more or less the same size,
Yeah.
so the drips are more or less the same size to
yeah.
each other. So there's a rhythm, there's a harmony
Yeah,
within.
yeah. There's a movement.
There's a full of movement, but you know, a harmony between the color fields and the colors, and
Yes.
the layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the only difference is it's got to move fast. You can't spend time thinking. Like for me,
Right,
Yeah.
right. For that, it's right. So you got to be yeah.
sometimes
move
I
fast.
started filming myself. Not myself, but as I'm painting, I'll call.
Right.
I think maybe one day I'll post it or whatever. I don't know. I don't get around to doing it.
Maybe one day I'll
One
post
day,
it.
I know that's the thing. I got to get better.
That's my
at.
line.
But
Maybe
but-
one day I'll post
But what
it.
was interesting is I was watching them back, and I'm realizing, wow, I'm sitting here for so long, and painting, and there's so much time in between because I'm not seeing myself. I'm just seeing the paintbrush on the canvas.
Right.
Like, what am I waiting for? Like, I'll paint a little dab, and then I'm stopping, and I'm deliberating, and then it's just not fast enough, and then there's so much held back. There's so much. The flow is held back,
Right.
And I guess that's the idea of Jackson Pollock or that kind of movement. It's just a non-stop, fast reaction. You know, some people paint, they're just non-stop moving.
Well,
And there's a,
again, if it's purely abstract, then you can. But if you're painting a portrait of someone's face, you can't just be non-stop abstract.
so even if I'm doing
you
something
can't.
that's very abstract, I deliberate too much.
Right.
I do
All right. So force yourself to,
to like
you know, the what is it called, the chest clock. You know, you
yeah,
gotta.
yeah. I do time myself when I do anything. I always have a timer, but yeah, that's all I gotta do. Keep the flow. If I'm listening to something, like if I'm listening to a podcast, or something,
Right.
and my mind's kind of there, I'll be able to move.
Then you
less.
move faster.
Yeah,
Okay. So you're able to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been painting a while. You've been creating a while. Is this? I don't even know. Is this full time? Is this part time? Where you know?
So interestingly now, so I've been, I guess, out of college. Let's say my career has been about 19 years, something like that. But for the past 14 years, I've been working full time for JNF as a art director, and then I was doing this as a side. I've always had a dream of really like always in my heart like, wow, it would be crazy to like go
What
and
if?
do this. What
Right.
if, you know, I have all these ideas I've wanted to do, whether
Right.
it's like I've spoken to you about this. I was doing shows,
Right.
and I did a couple shows. I got
Good.
some good
Yes,
advice
yes,
from you.
yes.
I remember when I
Yeah,
spoke to
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So I did different ideas. I have all these ideas that I've wanted to do, and I just haven't, just because I have a family and a full-time job and doing art on the side. But as of January, just
Like
literally
now.
as of now, right before the break, right before the new year, I basically am leaving JNF. So I might work there, whatever. Basically, all intents and purposes, I'm just
Outside
going into
contractor.
this fully. Yeah, but possibly. But now, fully jumping in, so it's a whole new life. Like it's pretty crazy. It's a dream that I've always had that I never thought was realistic. Like I never thought I can do. And now I think, and people, and I've always gone. I've always had this like tugging feeling that at the end I will regret it if I don't.
If you don't, you'll.
If I never took this opportunity to
Right.
like, what can I do if this was my whole life? Like if I
Right.
fully put myself into 100%, like what would I be able to achieve? And while the job gives me security, like it covers my bills and it makes like I have that security, which is very important. And I got a family, and so I just felt like it. I know that if I didn't do this, I will regret it. And now here it's happening. I'm going in fully.
All right.
Now, so it's
Mazel
like,
tov.
yeah, thank you. Well, I
Sweet.
got inspired from you for like
Sweet.
you're an inspiration. I watch your stuff. I follow you. You're always following a different idea. You always have a new expression. One of the things you said is how are you expressing it?
Right.
And I've learned from you. You've always
Right. So I don't have that. That's my thing. Is that because I'm not trained,
yeah.
I'm not limited to any one how.
Yeah.
I don't see the world through a specific how.
Yeah.
I just there's a million different
You got
ways.
ideas. You just
I've
have
got so many ideas.
Like the idea, which is a genius idea, the whole overflowing cup, and now you made it into
Right,
the Dre
right,
or whatever. You have
right.
a couple of different ones. It's an idea that's just. So, anyways, that's what I plan on doing
Mazel
now.
tov.
And that's
Mazel
the
tov,
plan.
mazel
Going
tov.
all in, jumping all in. I
Awesome.
wasn't ready, and I think Hashem.
Yeah, ready or not. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
whether
never
we're
ready.
ready or
We're
not,
never
yeah.
ready for anything.
Never ready, and so that's my plan, just to go in fully and have a bunch of ideas and try to make them happen with God's help.
Amazing. All right, so we're gonna have to check back in on you.
All right, yeah.
See that progress. So now,
Thank you.
this when I get around to it, I'll post. Is
Yeah.
gotta force yourself. Yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta
be
set things
disciplined.
up.
You gotta make things
Exactly.
happen. You gotta have the structure.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have one last question
Yeah.
that we close out the podcast with, and that is, what is your advice for young creatives for them to find their orange socks, for them to find their
That's a good question.
creativity and their expression?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. How do you find kind of your what you're here to contribute, your uniqueness, and then because it's very hard. I would say one. I'm going to say something that's counterintuitive. Maybe just the first thing thought in my head. It might be incorrect answer, but I think it's really important. I think when looking for your creativity, you might feel naturally you got to veer away from everything else and not follow others. But I think you have to be an avid studier of people who are doing what you're doing. Like if it's an artist, study the greats.
Right.
Well, look, I'm on print. I'm always looking at amazing artists who are a lot better than me. So you take, and at the same time, once you have that, once you have all your ingredients, you got to be able to. My point is, I think you got to be comfortable with being connected to what else is out there, and in some way you make it your own. How you do that is a hard answer. How you make it your own is very you. I don't know. That's your own self journey. But my point is, I think it's very important. I take from everybody. Like I don't know if I have. I wonder if you have anything of your own. I just see something and it sticks with me.
Right.
So I've seen so many different little nicks and knacks, and I've taken it and made this.
Right.
That's. So how you get there on your own, I don't know. That's probably your own journey. But I could say, don't stay away from other people. Don't stay away from
See
others.
what's out there.
See what's out
Right.
there. Get experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And be open. Let it flow.
Let it flow. All right, Mazel Tov again
Thank
on
you.
being a full-time artist.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And,
It's crazy, by the way. I know we're ending, but I just want to say, it's funny when somebody says to you, "Oh, so what do you do?" I love the reaction of the people's face when you say, "Oh, I'm an artist."
Right.
Kind of like the reaction I would have. That's a thing. You can
Right.
actually, you're an adult. You're an adult. Like, what do you mean you're an artist? That you have kids? That you have bills?
Right.
I like the way I appreciate the reaction. It also makes me nervous. I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be. But anyways.
No, but there was an article forever ago, in a modern Orthodox publication, saying that modern Orthodox society, the cost of schooling, is so much more than our cost of schooling. How many kids they have? The cost of a Jewish life is so expensive that the only prudent job direction, career, is doctor, lawyer, whatever, because you have a responsibility to make $250,000, $300,000 to support your family, which means that the society is not leaving room to cultivate artists and poets and musicians and so on. And the society as a whole is missing out because it doesn't have its artists.
There's no risk.
So we are doing a service to society. And yeah, but it's not just our own. We're responsible for, you're the creative in Toronto. I drove up here. I thought of you.
Yeah, well, there's others.
So
There's
you
other
have,
really talented,
you got to point out everyone who I can get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a responsibility.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Very good. Thank you. You too. You too.
היום נעשה משהו בלתי נשכח